Okay, so we're going to continue modifying our basic shapes, and we're going to pick up where we left off on the last video. And we're going to be learning some new tools today. In fact, we're going to be learning several new tools. We're going to be learning the artboard tool. So go ahead and run your mouse over the artboard tool. We're going to be learning about the line segment tool. And we're going to be learning about more features on the pen tool. So go up to File, Open Recent Files, Basic Shapes. And this is the artboard where we left off originally. We are going to set up our workspace, and we are going to go ahead and go up to View. We're going to show our rulers, so go to View, go to Rulers, Show Rulers. And you see your rulers are popping up both vertically here and horizontally here. If you want to close out your rulers, go to View and go to Rulers, Hide Rulers, and they go away. But for right now, we want to show them, so let's go Rulers, Show Rulers. The next thing we want to make sure is that from View, we can see our guides. We don't want to hide the guides because I have my guides showing, so let's make sure yours are showing. View, Guides, Show Guides. Okay? And I'll explain to you what those are in just a moment. Now what's really important is that we're setting up our workspace so that it looks nice. Even if it's a practice, we want to also maintain our negative and positive space or our figure and ground, so we're making a nice presentation because you never know when you might want to include something in your portfolio. I'm going to select this triangle, and I'm going to use my arrow keys to nudge it over a little bit so I have it more in the center because I think I like it that way a little bit better. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to select my artboard. When I select my artboard, notice that your entire workspace changes. I'm going to get rid of that. We don't need it. And you now look like you have these little crop marks. And what it's telling you is a lot of things about your artboard. For example, how big it is. Right up here you see the width is 8.5 and the height is 11 inches. That's important in case you need to know, or maybe you forgot how big you were working, or maybe you want to duplicate your artboard. But in this case, what I want to do is I'm going to go over here to the corner until I get a double arrow, and I'm going to drag the artboard down so I'm just measuring this white space right here. And so now my artboard is only measuring my white space, and it's telling me it's still 8.5 inches in width because nothing in width has changed. But now look at the height. The height has changed to 7.39 inches because I'm starting my measurement from right here. And the other thing is right here it tells you the name of the artboard, and we're just going to make sure that this is named Artboard 1. Now we're going to pull out some guides. So let's go to our black selection tool, and notice that our background changes again because we're no longer in the artboard tool. However, this portion of it is still selected, and we're going to go ahead and go to your ruler, and you see that black line is going to turn blue in a minute, and I'm going to kind of eyeball it, which means I'm going to estimate where the middle of that white space is, not the entire space, but just the white space is right here, about approximately. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull out another guideline, whoops, from right here. And I'm going to eyeball where the center of that is. Okay. And then I can go back and select my artboard again, and it can give me a little bit of an idea of how close I am. So that square is the center. And I'm pretty close, and it's okay for now. For this particular project, it doesn't have to be perfect, spot on perfect. But if you need it to be spot on perfect, then you can just move your little guideline over. Okay? All right, so let's get out of that and go back to your selection tool. To get out of the artboard tool, just go to your black selection tool, and now we're back into our workspace here, and we are going to start putting together some of our shapes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our Alt key. Now, on my Surface Pro, I'm using a Surface Pro to screencast this video, and my Surface Pro gives me some trouble sometimes with the Alt key. And it happens to be a connection between the Surface Pro and the actual tablet. However, in the lab, you should have no problem on the lab computers using your keyboard to duplicate using the Alt key. Okay? So, click on the circle, click on the Alt key on your keyboard, and you should get a double arrow, and you're going to pull down that circle into that white space. And you see, mine doesn't like to make an Alt key, so I'm going to go just Control C, Control V. So if you get into a problem with the Alt key, which I really doubt is going to happen in the computer lab, just go Control C, Control V, and do it that way. And I'll call it a day, so I'm just going to go. Instead of trying to use the Alt key right now, because I will have to use the Alt key in a minute, and I'll have to finagle it to get it to work. Now, we're going to put two shapes together. Let's select that circle, and let's go to the corner handle, and let's make it a little bit smaller. About like that. And we're going to put that circle right on top of that shape. And what we have here is the start of a basic looking head and shoulders. And if you look at some of the symbols for the restrooms, you'll see really simple shapes put together to represent a male or female. Road signs for motorists, very simple shapes because people need to identify them quickly, so not real fancy. So we're just going to do some basic modifications today, but as soon as you learn the steps, you can get more advanced with it. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my arrow tool, my black arrow tool, and select these two shapes here. And you can see I can clearly see where the circle and the square is being joined. I'm going to go up to Window, I'm going to go to Pathfinder, and I'm going to click this where it says Unite. And I now have a completely new shape that is united. And I no longer see where the circle and the square is joined. And so we now have the start of a very simple looking figure, which is going to get more advanced as we continue. Now, next, let's go here to this particular shape, this square, and make a copy of it. So Alt key, double arrow, drag your shape down, or just Control C, Control V, and get your shape, and let's have it here. And what we're going to do with this is you do not have to hold your Shift key down. We're just going to drag this out just a little bit to lengthen it. And drag it in a little bit to make it a little thinner and maybe a little smaller, right like that, right about here. So we can kind of have these figures side by side. Let's drag this one down a little bit. Remember, looking at our negative space and how we're placing things on our paper. And then the next thing you're going to do, or artboard, is we're going to make several copies of this particular circle. So let's go Control C, Control V, and I'm going to see if my Alt key will work. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So drag it in. You do not have to use a Shift key on that, just drag it in. Well, if you use a Shift key, you won't get a wonky looking circle, but here we go. You want to keep things in proportion. I don't like that. It's never a good idea to try to fix a bad design. If it doesn't look good, just Control Z and then just fix it. Shift, drag, in proportion. There we go. So you should be using your Alt key, and let's see if this will work for me. It's being really... There we go. All right. Alt. So let's drag a bunch of these circles together. We're making a tree. So sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't. And I know for a fact it's a glitch with the connection on my computer and my tablet. So when that happens, I'll just go Control V, Control C, and just do it that way. So annoying. All right, so get a bunch of shapes together, move them around. Before you join them, you should move them around to get them where you like them. Play around with the sizes, with the placement. And then I might want to drag this down a little bit more to make that a little taller, a little bigger. And so simple, basic looking tree. And then again, going up to your black selection tool and selecting the entire thing, we see all of those different circles and the rectangle. And you're going to go to your Pathfinder tool and you're going to go Unite. And now we have our tree united. And so now this is looking kind of puny next to that. So let's do this. And let's tug at the handle here, hold the Shift key. Let's make this a little bit bigger. A little bit bigger. Again, let's tug at the, holding down the Shift key so it doesn't get out of proportion. You do not want things to look stretched and rubber bandy. Okay, so now we have two modified shapes. So that was your first little modification that you made. Now we're going to go on to drag out our artboard to do some more modifications. So, back to your artboard tool. And you can stop this and pause this if you're not ready to move on. That's the great thing about having the videos. You can rewind them, fast forward them, pause them, and come back when you're ready. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to continue, otherwise this is going to be a very long video for you to watch. So, select your artboard, and you should be able to go Alt, double arrow, and drag over a second artboard right here. And before you do that, you want to make sure, because now remember we had only selected the bottom portion of your artboard, so we want to make sure that we go back, and when that artboard is selected, we actually have the whole entire artboard selected, or you're only going to be able to drag over half of it, or 3/4 of it. So let's go back to our artboard, make sure that the whole, so now you have the whole entire artboard selected, and you are going to go ahead and go Alt, and you get the double arrow, and you're going to drag over a second artboard, and let's see if my Surface Pro will allow me to do that, or if it's going to give me some problems. Let's see what it did here. No. No. Alright. Okay, so you shouldn't have any problem doing this. Again, I've said it a million times. Let me try to get this to work here. It's being really a pain in the butt. Alright, I'll move this back over here. And let's see if I can get this artboard to move over a little bit. So here we have two artboards. Now, if I go back to my artboard tool, and I have this artboard selected, right, because all of the little dotted lines or marching ants or whatever you want to call them are surrounding this. It says Artboard 1. Now let me select this one. This says Artboard 1 Copy. But we want to change this and name it Artboard 2. So let's go ahead and do that now. And you'll notice that they both measure the same exact size. They're 8.5 by 11. This one seems to be a little bit different size, but they look like the same, pretty much the same. Okay, and so we have them named. Now, we're going to do some special touches to this particular item right here, and one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to add some Bezier handles, and let's go up to our pen tool. And behind the pen tool are several different tools. We want to go down to this little, what would you call it? It's called an anchor point tool. So let's just call it the anchor point tool. It looks like a little arrow. And you're going to add an anchor point right on the end of that square. Okay, so get the black arrow tool and click on that point that you just made here. All right, let's go back. Let's get our, here we go. And then let's get our arrow tool, click on that, get it into place. And then make sure you've got your arrow point tool selected again, and click on this, and you're going to get your Bezier handles. And they are tricky to use, so if you find them going in the opposite direction, you have to pull and manipulate those to do what you want them to do. So I want it to go kind of not quite like that. I want to pull it up a little bit too big. Okay. So all I can do is tell you that you're just going to have to work with them. You're going to make a rounded, soft edge, kind of like a shoulder, and you'll know when you get it just right. You're just going to have to play around with it. It takes a while. So I don't like that. And when you don't like something, go Control-Z. Okay? That's the best thing to do. And click out of that. And you're going to get something that's a little softer. And remember, this is a really simple shape. So if you're not happy with it, go back and get the tool. And all I can tell you is just keep on playing with those handles until you get it nice and rounded. And I actually liked it better before. And not too big. And nope. I'm going to leave it just like that for now. Okay. And you go ahead and play around with yours. And then we're going to do something else with this in a little bit. Now the next thing we're going to do on this panel is we're going to just do only one side of this. So once you're done playing with those Bezier handles and pulling the anchor point so you round off the corner, and of course I'll come over and help you, but you really need to work with it yourself. Only do one side. When we're working with something like this, I'm going to teach you how to do a reflection so you do not have to draw both sides, because you really won't get them perfect. And it'll... Okay, so let's select the tree with our direct selection tool, and then we have all of these points. We know, so we're seeing what all of our points are here. And then let's go ahead and go back to our pen tool, and we're going to get the add an anchor point. And we're going to add an anchor point on the middle, about the middle of the tree trunk on either side. Okay, and so we add our anchor point on either side, get our white selection tool, and grab onto those anchor points and pull our tree in a little bit. And as you can see, it's still really angular. So it's not soft like a shape found in nature. It's very stiff. So we're going to work to pull out those points. And so what we're going to do, we're going to go back and get our, let's reveal all those tools by left clicking. So you have all of these tools hiding behind your pencil. You're going to go back and get your anchor point tool again. And you're going to click on this point with your anchor point tool, right? And you're going to get some nice handles, and you're going to be able to get a nice curve in that. And when I let go, I have a very nice curve in my tree trunk. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this one, and I'm going to curve it in a little bit more and a little bit out. So we get kind of an interesting, more natural shape. And I could continue to play with this, and you can go ahead and play with yours. And if you want to go ahead and make it a little bit nicer, and if it goes crazy, just let's see. Well, I don't want to do that. There we go. Hold on a minute. I don't want to do that. I liked it better this way. But you can kind of play around with it and pull it out a little bit more. But I don't like that though. Yeah, I'm going to just leave it for right now. And I'll play with more later. So, okay, you now have Artboard 1, your basic shapes, and then some very basic modified shapes. Okay, Artboard 2, basic shapes, still using these shapes, and now modifying these shapes. And now we're going to pull out our artboard for a third time. So go ahead and go to your artboard tool, and you now have your artboard 2 selected. Hit your Alt key on your keyboard and pull out a third copy. Okay, if you had any trouble pulling out that third board, please let me know and I'll come over and help you. Let's go back into our artboard view. So remember, artboard tool, artboard view, and you should have now artboard 1. And when this is selected, you should see artboard 1 at the top. You should have your 3 basic shapes and 2 very basic modified shapes. Let's go to artboard 2. You should have your 3 basic shapes and 2 slightly modified shapes. And then when we go here to our third artboard that we pulled out, you should go ahead and rename that artboard 3. So rename that artboard 3. And now here's where it starts to get a little bit more complicated and a little bit more fun. And the results are kind of nice. So let's get out of the artboard view by going to our black selection tool, and that brings us back into this view here. We are going to divide this custom shape that we made in half. And then we're going to reflect this side to the other side. There's a very easy way to do this in an earlier version of Creative Cloud. However, with some changes to the newest version of Creative Cloud. Okay, so here we are, and I am going to show you how to go ahead and divide the shape in half. So let's see where we're at right now. Again, I'm having some trouble with my computer, and so I want to try to make this as easy as possible for you, and I had to kind of go back. So here's what you do. I'm going to go ahead. You do not have to follow this next step. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this artboard for you and start all over again. So let me just bridge the gap here because I think there might be a gap in this video, but let's just go over this and let's go real quick. Artboard view. Okay, artboard 1, we have our basic shapes and some basic modifications. Artboard 2, a little bit more modification. We used the Bezier handles to kind of round off the shoulder. We made our tree a little bit more organic looking in the tree trunk area. And now you were on to a third artboard. Whoop. And in the third artboard, we were getting ready to divide the shape in half so I could teach you how to use the reflection tool. So you should be on your third artboard. And what it should look like when you're done is a divided shape. But I'm going to go here and just show you how I did that because again, my keyboard tonight is really being a pain. So I'm going to actually delete this. I'm going to select this and delete it. I'm going to show you an easy way to do this because what happened with the upgrade to CS to Creative Cloud is a change in how the Pathfinder tools were used. And sometimes you'll notice that when upgrades come for software, and you might find this with your computer games, things might be more advanced, but they also might get more complicated. So something you were which was very easy to do, might get more complicated with the upgrades, and that's exactly what happened here with our Pathfinder tool. So you should be at this point right here on your third artboard with a solid shape. And I'm going to go ahead and all I'm going to do is find my scissor tool. I'm really hoping this will work for you. And your scissor tool might be hidden behind your eraser tool. So left click on that, reveal the scissor tool, grab the scissor tool, and let's zoom in by either going up to view and zoom in, or by just going Control plus on your keyboard. So we can really get in there and you can really see what I'm doing. And again, I apologize if this is choppy, but we should be getting better in just a minute. Okay, I have my view zoomed in. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And I have my scissor tool selected, and I know that because it looks like the button's been pressed, and that's how you can tell. So, and I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to click with my scissor tool here, and I'm going to click with my scissor tool here, and I should get a division with my shape. So it could just be that on the computer lab computers this will work just fine. But I'm going to click at the very top part here, and I'm going to kind of eyeball the center, and I should be getting let's see. Let's select this. So you should be able to just pull it apart just like this. So let me go Control Z again, Control Z again, and scissor tool, clicking at the top, very top part of the circle and very bottom part of the line here, grabbing my tool, and in this case it grabbed this part. Either way is fine. It doesn't matter which part gets separated, but if you'll know it's separated if half of it is surrounded by a box, and that's what we want to do. So we do not want this part. We're not interested in it. We can just delete it. We want this part, and we're going to go find our reflection tool, and that's another tool you're going to have to look for, and it's a new tool for you as well. So it might just look like the rotate tool, and hiding behind the rotate tool when you left click is the reflect tool. And you're going to use that tool to reflect this side to make the other side. And once you have your reflect tool selected, you're going to double click or left click. So double click and wait, sorry, whoa, we don't want to do that. Double click out and oh my gosh. How about you double click right on the tool? There we go. Bring up the dialog box. We want it to be vertical, 90-degree angle, a copy. And that's what we get. Get your black arrow tool and put your two copies together. And that is how you reflect. So when you have a custom shape, boy, this is a really easy process, and I think that my computer is making it harder than it needed to be. But it's really easy to do. Let me Control Z that so you can see that again. All right, that was crazy. So let's go back. All right, we divided our shape in half. The side with the squared off shoulder part, we don't want that. We deleted it. And we know it's selected because we have a blue box with handles all around it. Delete that, okay? We now have this portion, and we're going to reveal our reflect tool, which is bundled with the rotate tool. So if you're only seeing this rotate tool, know that when you left click, you're going to find your reflection tool right under it. Double click on the tool itself, because if you click out here, it's going to rotate your object. Double click right here. You want to make sure vertical is selected. There's a black dot inside the bubble. The angle is 90 degrees. It should default to 90 degrees. And you want to make a copy. And you're going to get your black arrow tool, and you're going to take that copy and you're going to stick it together right here. And make sure that lines up nicely so you have no white space. And you now have a reflection of that shape. So let's go to actual view, go up to view, actual size, and again, I have 3 artboards. You should just have, I have 4 artboards, you should just have 3. In fact, I'm probably just going to delete this artboard right here. Get it out of there. I just want to delete that artboard and everything that goes with it. Let's see if I can just delete that. It doesn't want to be deleted. All right, we'll deal with that later. Here, delete, 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 delete. All right, now my workspace should look exactly like yours. And in our progression, we are now down here. We have a reflected image. We use the scissor tool to cut. We use the reflection tool to reflect. We put it together, and we have a nice custom shape right now, and we can continue to use that. But for right now, we're going to go back to our tree. We're going to do some fancy embellishments on our tree, and then we're going to put a background on this, and I'm going to show you some more things you can do. Now for the tree, we're going to make some marks, some swoosh marks in here with our paintbrush tool. But eventually what we want to do is we want to change those paintbrush strokes to actually be cuts in the tree. And it'll look very nice when we put a colored background behind this. And you could do the same thing. You could draw a face here, and when you put the colored background behind it, it's going to show through. And that might be a nice touch for your logos. So let's get started. Go to your paintbrush tool, make sure your fill color is white. For now, make it white. Don't make it any other color, just make it white. And let's zoom in. And let's go ahead and just have some fun making some swoosh marks. And I have my, let's make it a 2-point. Let's make some of them 2-point. And I'm not going to get into the spiral tool right now, but I am going to do a tutorial on the spiral tool. And you're going to love that tool. And I'm going to make my my lines different shades, different strokes, stroke sizes. So some really big strokes, some medium-sized strokes, some like that. I like the 2 point. Let's go back to 2 point. And let's go to 1 point. Yeah, so different size strokes, some 1 point, some 2 points, whatever you like. Okay. All right. Now, next step. Okay, we are going to create these white paintbrush strokes. We are going to make them their own. So, when you're done making your various size brush strokes, you're going to go ahead and you're now going to start the process of changing these white brush strokes into actual paths and cutting or minusing these shapes out of the tree. This looks really nice when you print it out on printed paper, or as we're going to do for the final step in this project, we're going to put a background on here, and that background is going to show right through the tree. So this is a nice touch for maybe some logos that you might be designing. So let's get started with that. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to select with your black arrow tool, you're going to select the entire tree. And all of your vector lines are going to be selected. And then you're going to hit the shift key, and it's really important that you click on the shift key and click in the tree trunk area where there are no white strokes drawn. So you should have not put anything in the tree trunk, only in the top portion of the tree. And what happens when you select the entire tree and then click right and then shift and then click in the tree trunk area is you get all of your vector lines that you drew with the paintbrush selected. And then you're going to go up to Object, and you should be able to click on Expand Appearance. I don't know why mine's not showing, but let's hope that I can get it later. But your Expand Appearance should be showing. So I'm going to just hit Expand for right now. I don't know if that's going to affect it later on. So then you're going to go ahead, and that should have made all of your brush strokes close separate paths. And you can use the minus, the front button in your Pathfinder tool. So be sure your Pathfinder tool is showing. If you can't find it, go up to your window and make sure Pathfinder tool is clicked so that you can actually see that. Okay, so here's what should happen if it worked correctly for you. I'll just show you this real quick before we do our final artboard. And I'm going to draw a rectangle around my tree and turn that rectangle blue. And I'm going to go Object and come on, Arrange and send. I think send backward. Okay, and so what should have happened is when you hit your Pathfinder tool, what's minus the front, it should have made those paths that we selected cutouts in the tree. And so that's a pretty cool feature. So hopefully that worked for you. If not, call me over and I'll see if I can figure out what went wrong. Okay, so we're going to wrap up this lesson, and it's definitely been a little bit challenging, but you should have enough basic information right now to go ahead and start putting all kinds of shapes together to make animal faces, human figures, and I'm going to be doing a few more tutorials that give you specific types of things that you can put together. But this is the basics of putting shapes together in Illustrator. Everything that you do is basically going to depend on your own creativity and how you can put shapes together. In the final activity, we're going to go ahead and just drag out another artboard, and we're going to put a background on this final one right down here. So let's go ahead and go to our artboard, and we have that as, let's make sure we have these named correctly. So this is our artboard 1, Artboard 2. You should have Artboard 3 looking like this. It's not a copy, it's just 3. And then you're going to go ahead and make sure that that third artboard is selected. And you're going to go ahead and hit your Alt key and drag out another artboard. And once you have that artboard dragged over, you're going to go ahead, get back into your artboard view, and have your fourth artboard selected, and go up here and go artboard number 4. Okay, and there we go. And it's not a copy, it's just artboard number 4. Get out of your artboard view by going to your black selection tool. And now what we're going to do is grab a rectangle, and we are going to add a background onto here like that. And let's pick a color that we like. I'm going to pick green. You can pick any color you want. And I'm going to actually just use my color picker, and that's too bright. Ooh, too bright. Well, that apple green, oh, that's terrible. Let's go with, I don't like those greens at all, in fact. I think I might pick a different color. Maybe that color. I don't like that either. Go back to the green. Change the opacity on that. Oh, I kind of like that. Not too bad. Okay. All right. So pick a color that you like. Pick a color, any color. And now I actually have that green, and so what happened was, okay, let me show you what happened. So at 100% opacity, you cannot see the figures behind the green. However, and there's so many different things you can do with these programs. It's just overwhelming sometimes, but let me change that color for a minute, and let me go ahead to opacity, and let me change that. You could actually see when I lower the opacity of the color that I selected, you could now see the figures behind it, right? So it's not that the figures are on top of the color, it's that the opacity of the color has been lowered, and you can actually see the figures behind it. Now I could actually go up to Object, Arrange, Send Backward, and now you can see how that red tree popped out more on top of that lavender background, but this one didn't do it. So what I'm going to do is cancel that. I'm going to go ahead, what I really want to do is pick a green, and I want it at 100% opacity. So there's 100%. I popped my tree forward, but the other one's not popping forward. So I'm going to see if I can get that other one to pop forward. There we go. But the opacity is really too strong, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lower the opacity on that, and I'm going to play around with my colors. You can do the same thing. Get your rectangle tool, draw a rectangle, select a color, send your rectangle to the back, go Object, Arrange, Send Backward, or you can lower the opacity so you can see things through it and have some fun doing that. And again, if you need help, please call me over. I'll be more than happy to help you. And you should have something that looks, let's look and see what we have here. You have a nice piece of art. Let's go zoom out. And now you can go ahead and experiment. I'm going to go and hide my guides, view, guides, hide guides, take them out of there. We don't want any guides. And you have a nice progression of all of the things you learned in this activity, from the very basic shapes to the modified shapes, and then to some designs inside the shapes. And you can go ahead and have some time to choice time. After you're done with this tutorial, I would like you to have some choice time to go ahead and now play with combining and modifying your own shapes and then we're going to be doing a typography lesson probably the beginning of next week, and then by the end of next week starting off on your own logos designs.